was just watching. I'll bring up a poll. I watch an online news source called Breaking Points. It's based on YouTube. People can watch it. They've got about 700,000 subscribers, and it's a really interesting show because they have two very good hosts. One being left wing, one being right wing, and they're both very good, and they're both very reasonable, and they're both very consistent. They did a poll the other day that said if China were to invade Taiwan, would you support the United States coming to Taiwan's defense? 57% of responders, and there's 100,000, I think, odd people, 127,000, said that they would. Now, the interesting thing about that in the kind of commentary universe, ecosystem, is people were really surprised that in this new media, like it's beyond new media, we're now into new media source, that there's still this vibe of what the old media respondents were. So the watchers of television and readers of newspapers were the people who are okay with America going to war, primarily Americans that have answered this. But even in new media, it hasn't changed. And I guess I clicked unsure there because I kind of am unsure, but also because I wanted to see the results. And I was intrigued with a couple of things. It made me think about Taiwan and how at the moment Taiwan seems to be one of those subjects amongst politicians around the world that they're not allowed to say, should Taiwan be a country or not? And I wanted to ask you that, and I genuinely don't know what the protocol is for this, so apologies if I go in the wrong direction, but if you're allowed to answer that question or not, and if you do, what is your answer? And if you answer yes, is that going to cause, some kind of unintended headline like we talked about before? But also the kind of idea about what we should do in these sorts of situations to support what appears to me being just a dickhead from Dunedin who can say the country of Taiwan being oppressed by China, what we should do about it.
Well, I think you may have answered some of your questions leading into that. I mean, so there's, I think actually you've just done quite a good job of unpacking why it is such a complex issue, right? So New Zealand recognises China, the government of China, and we essentially kind of participate in the broad, although not universal, but the broad global consensus, which is that it's the government of China that's recognised, and the quid pro quo for that is that China won't invade Taiwan to kind of reintegrate it, so to speak, with the mainland. And so that's been our kind of diplomatic stance for a very long time. And I guess the issue at the moment is that the government of China appears to be kind of saber rattling and kind of pushing things further than anybody's really comfortable with, and making noises that actually a peaceful resolution is not necessarily the highest priority. Now, the Green Party, on the other hand, always takes the stance of non-violence and try to work through dispute resolution. And the extent to which we think that New Zealand should play any kind of role in that at all would always be as essentially in a kind of a mediating kind of role, a sort of a peacemaking role to the extent that we can, or that people want us to. What happens with China obviously affects us, enormously, given our trading relationship with China and also with Taiwan, but also the impact it would have on the Asia Pacific region, and to other countries that we're very close to. It would be a horrendous outcome for us as a country for there to be a war, and so anything that we can do to avoid that, I think, is we need to bend our minds to.
Anything we can do. So, and this question was based around obviously the US going to Taiwan's defense, and the irony that the commentators have been saying about this show was they're expecting the respondents to this program to be like, no, of course there shouldn't be war, kind of what you're saying, but they're still saying, because the point that some commentators were making was if America went to war with China, that would be World War III, and nothing's kind of worth that. What about the question of what is Taiwan? What are they? How should we be considering them? Should we consider them, a part of China, separate from China, their own country? What do you say to that?
Well, we would say that everybody on Earth has the right to self-determination. So that's not really a question for me. It's really for the people of Taiwan to determine for themselves. I mean, I'm not kind of remotely qualified to put words into their mouths. So that would be the stance that we would take.
So look, honestly, and I'm not trying to be a cheeky bastard here, but does that mean you can't really answer the question? Like you can't actually say they should be a country because of our relationship with China?
Well, I have responsibilities as a government minister. I have to kind of represent the views of the government, and especially when it comes to matters of foreign relations, right? So, there's that. But I guess my point is, I don't, putting my ministerial hat to one side for a second, I don't consider it, my, I don't think that I should take a view about whether Taiwan should or should not be a country. That's not for me to say, right? My point is that, certainly in the Green Party's view, that people, should have a right to determine for themselves, what kind of governance arrangements they want for themselves. I mean, that's kind of what we would call appropriate decision making in our parlance. That the people who are affected by a decision should participate in those decisions that affect them. And so, you can extend that principle out in that way. And then second of all, which is another of our principles, is the principle of non-violence, that we should always seek to resolve matters non-violently before we resolve them violently.
So what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is if the people of Taiwan overwhelmingly wanted to be a country, we should, as a country, as a government, as the Greens, support them wanting to be a country?
I think that the Green Party would take the view that it is up for the people of Taiwan to determine that.